Max, the one to watch for the best in entertainment, now has live sports with the Bleacher Report sports add-on.
5, 4, 3, 2, I let one go.
Stream hundreds of select live games from MLB.
That's gonna go!
NBA, NHL, U.S. Soccer, and NCAA Men's March Madness.
We just see what we think we just saw!
And it's all included for a limited time with any Max subscription.
He got him!
After the promo period, add it for $9.99 a month. Base subscription required.
This episode is brought to you by Columbia Sportswear. It's snowing again, and that wind chill is killer. But you're not worried about that because you shop the Omni Heat Infinity Collection. It's warmth perfected with tiny gold dots that reflect your body heat inside and protect you from the cold outside. No snow or chilly temps can stop you now. Go out anyway. Shop the Omni Heat Infinity Collection now at Columbia.com/infinity.
Apple Card is the credit card created by Apple. You earn 3% daily cash back up front when you use it to buy a new iPhone 15, AirPods, or any products at Apple. And you can automatically grow your daily cash at 4.15% annual percentage yield when you open a high-yield savings account. Apply for Apple Card in the Wallet app on iPhone. Apple Card subject to credit approval. Savings is available to Apple Card owners subject to eligibility. Savings accounts by Goldman Sachs Bank USA, member FDIC. Terms apply.
Serie Chronicles is a Media Chronicles production.
Nikki, and hi to the Chronicles Tifosi. I have literally just shoved on a red lipstick because I can't really be bothered with my makeup. It's been a really exciting but a super busy weekend, and I think it's honestly been the best Serie A weekend yet. I mean, obviously this is only the fourth round, but it was super exciting because Juventus were amazing, yay! Roma were amazing, yay! So me and Simon are very happy. But we also had like the most wicked Milan derby. Wicked, of course, if you are an Inter fan. Horrible to watch if you are indeed a Milan fan. But I'm going to delve all into that. I just want to say before that I'm sorry if I haven't been that active on social media recently. Some of you have written to me, members of the show who've been asking about it. To be honest, I was away on holiday, and then when I came back, there was that Rubiales, the head of Spanish Federation, that whole, obviously, him in that interview with Piers Morgan. I went to do that show, and, dealing with trolls who hate, women, I think, by the sounds of it, has just made me just not want to engage for a while on social media. But screw them, I'm going to be back, and I will be writing until my heart's content. And I'm so done with this Rubiales thing, but unfortunately, he made it a story for longer than it needed to be. Let's talk about more interesting things. And let's start it off by talking about the Milan derby. And I don't know, because I'll be honest with you guys, this was like such a fantastic game. Largely because the Inter was so amazing to watch. I mean, everything that we had assumed for them to... Here's the thing, right? We came into the season, we had question marks about Inter. I remember doing a show with James Horncastle for the BBC Euroleagues. And we were talking about teams in crisis, and he mentioned Inter, and I agreed with him wholeheartedly, because this is a side where you started to wonder during the transfer market. And it's not just me, I'm talking about Inter loyalists as well, who wondered whether this team had been weakened, and some of the approaches that they've had in the transfer market, not getting the likes of Skamak on the line, sort of hesitating with what they wanted, then bringing in Arnautovic, Lukaku. You understand their stance on that one, but there were just question marks as to whether or not this team seemed to be weakening season, every season. And what would that mean? It was almost like they're just like addressing gaps and just putting plasters over what needed to be done. But there wasn't genuine investment in this growth, in this project that we would hope. But of course, they were still thought to be the favourites for the season. And they started in incredible fashion. I mean, the 4-0 defeat of Fiorentina is just... It is everything that Inter are, right? They are so strong and compact, and they really are a team that understand their core and have had their core, and have done a tremendous job in further re-emphasizing the best thing that they do have in Serie A, which is what they have over all the other clubs, which is this incredible midfield. I did think that they would suffer a little bit more without Marcelo Brozovic, but I mean, Fratesi, with Italy scoring the 5th goal, he's having the time of his life. And imagine he's just sitting on the bench. Even when he's introduced, he can do all of that magic on the 5th goal. And the attitude as well, turning around and doing 4 like that. I mean, to Krunic, this guy has already become an Interista. But I did look it up. He's a Roma fan. I didn't know he was a Roma fan. Does everyone know that he was a Roma fan? I know his family are Juve fans. I just didn't know that he was a Roma fan. I should have known that, right? Anyway, so now he's a full-fledged Interista. But I find it incredible how there were question marks in pre-season about their defending. They started last season looking a bit shoddy in defence, but the way that they have started the season seems like it was a team that wants to be back in that Champions League final, that felt that they were enough in that Champions League final to have deserved the win. And they've come into the season desperate to show everyone who had doubted their potential that they still are the team to beat in Serie A and perhaps even beyond. So looking forward to their Champions League match this week. But I found this performance to be, obviously, I think everyone would agree, it's a very commanding performance. It was a very intelligent performance. There's a part of me that thinks, I think everyone agrees that Milan made it very easy for them and they played right into their hands. I mean, Inter love nothing more than, go ahead, you go and take up, the possession. We'll defend and we know how to win back the ball, and then we'll launch all the vertical attacks, and we have the right players to do so, because Marcus Thuram is looking like a phenomenon at the moment. The perfect mix between Edin Dzeko's creativity and intelligence, as well as Romelu Lukaku's pace and ability and striking potential. And right now he's not playing with any fear. He's playing with immense confidence in himself. He is being shown that by his coach as well. I mean, to score in the derby and to score that goal, I mean, I have a very close, my best friend's a Milan fan, and he said it was like the world conspired against us. I mean, there was a deflection, there was the most outrageous goal from Marcus Thuram, and that was pretty much it, because the rest of it's kind of their fault. But I didn't want to go too much into it, but it was the most outrageous goal. And I actually, when he did it, I gasped. I was like, it was just a fantastic goal. So Marcus Thuram looking like the perfect balance. But I guess that, we know that Inter are really good, and I'm surprised with how good they've been straight away, not even look like they've had any slight issues. But I guess, Nikki, what I've come to talk to you about is actually Milan, because I feel like this is just I know it's 5-1, and I know it's humiliating to lose 5-1, but I also think the reaction has been a bit melodramatic, and I'm kind of like, hold on. Inter are far ahead in their project. You have a team that has 10 new arrivals over the summer. This is a basically completely different squad, and you want them to overcome the team that's basically the same team from the Champions League final that has Marcus Thuram, okay, instead of Edin Dzeko that would have started this match, But other than that, this is kind of exactly the same side, So you're the team that has all the changes, and you're going to take a time to find yourself and find your value and find your strengths and understand your limitations. So it's week 4. I'm not understanding what people thought when this match happened. Did you, people are like so astonished at the beating. And I can understand the criticism for Pioli. For sure, he played right into the hands of Inter. For sure, he should have found a way to work on steadying the defense, on making this team not appear as exposed and as humiliated as they were defensively, especially with the absence of Fikayo Tomori. But I do also think that one thing that I had recognized about Milan is that they exceeded our expectations at the start of the season. I think a lot of us expected that they would need time to find their rhythms and to find their strength, and then they hit the ground running, and they were stunning to watch, whether it was against Bologna or obviously defeating Jose Mourinho's Roma. Despite going a man down, Milan have showed us their strengths. But I do need to mention that I said that several times, and I think they've exceeded expectations, and that we don't know what they're going to do against better attacking opposition, and that this is the match that we would judge them on. And a lot of people, let's just say my friends, have been very annoyed at Pioli for wanting to play into toe-for-toe, to take them on, when you should be more pragmatic, when you understand that the opponent is that much better than you. So let's not take a psychological hit when we're playing Newcastle, and maybe play with more pragmatism rather than trying to dominate and control the game. And I, being the conspiracy theorist, because I don't believe Pioli is dumb, I believe him to be one of the best coaches, thinks that this could just be an experiment. And by experiment, I mean, let's go out, let's play our game and see how good we are. And then we can better understand who we are, because this is an entirely new team. I also understand their approach, Is this really wise to have played the style that you have played, to have allowed them the wide open spaces to counterattack, to have played with a high line like that, to concede so many goals when you have Newcastle and a group of death to contest in the Champions League? And that I don't know, Nikki. I don't know, but I feel like Pioli is somebody who is being overly criticized at the moment. I think that he deserves to be criticized. I think he knows exactly what he was doing, frankly speaking. I think that he wanted to see what could happen, how good this midfield is, to then adjust accordingly. Should he not adjust accordingly, I think then we can have this conversation again. But Inzaghi deserves a lot of credit for winning 5 derbies in a row, and that historic feat that he has now managed in 2023. He has built a rocket ship of Inter that just doesn't look like right now has any imperfections within it. And that is a remarkable thing to say about a side that we continue to question. So kudos to him. But also worth noting that Pioli won 2 back-to-back Serie A derbies in 2022. So it's not like he doesn't know what he's doing or can't win a derby. He can. So let's just give him the space. This is a new team. It's going to take time to find their defensive solidity. And we know Inter's strengths, especially as the season was drawing to an end, was when they recovered their ability at the back, when they understood how to show the necessary design. It's always much easier to do so in a high-profile match. Inter very much looking like the overwhelming favourites to win Serie A. Barella's amazing. Marcus Thuram is amazing. I thought that Lautaro Martinez did such a good job to play for the team, look for the right passes, the moves, to win the penalty. It was such a commanding, authoritative performance from a mature leader. And I think I really wanted to see that from Martinez. It's like, I don't need to score, I just need to be there for the team. And I think he was outstanding in doing that. I think Pioli needs to look about that whole, your fullbacks coming into the centre. You don't need to do this all the time. And if you are, and you need another midfielder, then just use another midfielder. So, again, I feel like Pioli should be sort of given a pass on this one, allowed to adjust this team, this newly formed team with this new management side that he has now. And let's just see what happens and how they perform going forward. But otherwise, great game to watch. I'm really scared of Inter. But of course, my team, Juventus, did a terrific job as well over Lazio. I had this down as a Lazio win. I didn't think Lazio were that fantastic against Napoli. But for me, I was fairly certain they would get that win, because I'm not sure how I feel about this Napoli. And I think you all pretty much share my concerns, but this is not a conversation about them. This is a conversation about how I feel about Juventus in general. Now, they had that win against Empoli that I told you, for me, raised a lot of concerns. I know it was a win, but I kept thinking to myself, this team don't look all that talented.
At Consumer Cellular, you get the same exact coverage as the largest carriers, but for up to half the cost. Same thing, up to half the cost. Up to half the cost for the same thing. 50% the money for 100% the same thing. I hope I'm making myself clear. Consumer Cellular. When freedom calls, we're here to answer. Call us at 1-888-FREEDOM.
Half the cost savings based on cost of Consumer Cellular single-line 5GB data plan with unlimited talk and text compared to lowest cost single-line postpaid unlimited talk, text, and data plan offered by T-Mobile and Verizon May 2023.
And I was like, is this team good enough? Like, do I trust this side? Are they the right team for a coach like Allegri? Because he likes to work with older sides, older players who understand what he's looking to do. Whereas this side is more raw in its ability, lots of energy, but not necessarily always going to make the right decisions. And I felt like this game, I still have question marks about, all the players, because I still think when you look at it, how many of them are like world-class talent. And before I used to say there was quite a number of them. Like if I look at the 2015 team or 2017 or 16 or 18, I could name a lot of world-class talent. This time around, less so. And with Paul Pogba now away, I have concerns. And the drama of Bonucci, I'm telling you, I came into this match thinking for sure this is like a 2-3-0 loss. But I was really surprised. I was surprised by the energy, the mentality, the desire to keep moving forward, the ability of Chiesa in that role as a striker, sticking close to Dusan Vlahovic. I didn't necessarily think all of a sudden all these players look amazing. Although I'm very happy with the strike partnership. But I do think this was a very well-coached team. So I do think it's kudos to Allegri and his staff. I think the way they were pushing going forward, I'm sure everyone really enjoyed that. But for me, I had some defensive questions and I loved how they were off the ball. I thought Meretti in this game was so improved tactically. And that's something I needed to see from him because I have question marks about him. I thought that the way they just moved in general, the compactness, Gatti, I thought Gatti was great through the middle. Of course, there was always going to be an error and they are going to make errors because, like I said, I think this team has a lot to learn. But I think that the potential is there. The energy is there. It was so clear, like, just the movements of, Locatelli would get, I thought he was outstanding. He was like, I loved it because all the newspapers kept referring to him as the Italian national version of himself because Locatelli is one player for Juve and one player for the Italian national team and the Italian national team version is just so much better. But, it was like his passes, he wasn't even looking. It was always that perfect out ball to Weston McKennie, who was always, for some reason, not marked all the way out there on the right. I'm like, why? You can see that this is always the pass that's, it's always Locatelli with a long diagonal towards McKennie. Like, why are none of you, like, registering this for Lazio? And then, that, and McKennie doing a tremendous job, really, in all the goals. So he did a great job. I thought Weah missed a great chance. It should have been 5. Should have been 5 for Juve, to be honest with you. There were just so many opportunities, but I loved them. I loved Chiesa. I loved Vlahovic not having to have his back to goal and be able to just look ahead and show us what he can do. And so I guess my question is I still think Milan should be considered as one of the favourites. I think Juve should be considered one of the favourites, but Inter are the overwhelming favourites. But I just want to ask you, Nikki, Lecce got a draw. I'm still believing Lecce. But do you think Milan are being overly criticised, considering it's week 4 and how many changes have been made? And do you think it's over for Lazio? Like, I don't know, are we seeing, like, what do we think of this side going forward? And do you think Juventus can genuinely challenge for the title? Ciao.
Hey Mina, hey everyone. Sorry, this is just a voice note from me and not a video postcard. I will get back to you in the video postcards soon. I think I'm most of the way there, but I'm just still getting over this COVID infection. The worst symptoms have passed now. I'm no longer as headachy and sore throaty as I was this time last week, but forgive me for doing one more where I don't quite, just not particularly keen on sticking my sick self on camera. But yes, should be back soon. I'm definitely feeling on the up from it, even though it hasn't been heaps of fun. But I tell you what was fun this weekend, Amina, was Serie A. Same as you, I thought this was a really entertaining weekend. And given we only had, 8 games in Saturday and Sunday, because we've still got 2 more coming up on Monday night. As I record this, a lot of goals. We had 13 goals just in those first 3 games on Saturday. Then on Sunday we got Frosinone 4, Sassuolo 2, Fiorentina 3, Atalanta 2, and of course Roma thumping Empoli 7-0. Quite a weekend, crikey. And yes, before I get into it, quite a week for you as well, Mina. I very much understand everything you're saying about when you're at the middle of a pylon. Same as feeling physically sick when you're in the middle of a pylon, not particularly feeling like sticking yourself in front of a camera. And, kudos to you, first of all, for doing it. Because, I've been there with internet pylons. I have not done Piers Morgan. And frankly, hats off to you for being brave enough to go and do that and deal with being talked over and the general rudeness that goes on, I think, for lots of his guests, but certainly I felt like it was going on when you were on there. I wanted to get in there and shout on your behalf. I only saw it after the event, so not that I would have been able to do it from my TV anyway, but I wanted to get in there and be like, shut up, Piers. But you did hold your own and ignore the trolls, I want to say, even though I know full well that's sometimes easier said than done. But still important that you were there and saying things that needed to be said. But on to the things that need to be said about this Serie A weekend. I don't know if I do agree with you on Stefano Pioli for this Inter Milan game. I almost wish I had you here so I could hammer it out with you and disagree, but I'm not baby out with the bathwater, right? I don't think that we need to say Pioli's terrible and in the bin with Pioli after losing 1 game of football. But honestly, I thought this was a really bad look. And it was a really bad look, not just because of the scoreline, and we'll get to the scoreline, but it's a really terrible look for him. And it's not the first time he's done it. When he comes out after a game, when his team's lost 5-1, you've lost the derby 5-1, right? You haven't just lost 1-0, 2-0 even, 3-1. You've lost 5-1. And you're there in a press conference after the game saying about in the first 4 minutes, we were the only ones who touched the ball. The first 4 minutes? Are you on a sort of, are you trying to wind us up? Like, for 4 minutes we were really on top of them. What about the other 86, Stefano? Please. I was honestly like somewhere between laughing and wanting to tear my hair out, because if you remember, he did the same thing after the Champions League 2-0 defeat in the first leg back in May, where he said, for the first 7 minutes they never got into our area. Right, but in the 8th minute they scored. It's like he's talking from a different planet. Oh, it's fine, they didn't get into the area for the first 7 minutes. Yes, but they scored in the 8th minute this game. Well, we were really on top of it for 4 minutes, and then you conceded a goal, and then you conceded 4 more goals. I don't know what his thing is with these attempts to justify bad performances, but I find it not helpful. Like, that doesn't make me think better of you and your team. That makes me think, oh, that's the story you're telling after this, not I was disappointed with this, we could have done this better, we were in charge for 4 minutes. Because the thing is, they actually had more of the ball in both games, right? In May they had more of the ball in that 2-0 defeat. Here they had more of the ball in a 5-1 defeat. And I mean, if he'd said for 90 minutes we had more of the ball, my response would be, I still don't care, because holding the ball doesn't mean a great deal if you're not using it effectively. And I don't think losing 5 derbies in a row is an accident. I think that Inzaghi right now has his number. And what's frustrating is that Pioli's not coming up with anything. He's coming up with just this sort of answer of, oh, well, we were good for a few minutes. Oh, well, we had the ball. And I thought some of his decisions in this game were really, I don't know if perplexing is the right word, because in some ways they weren't actually all that surprising because it's just what he's done before. But they were too predictable and they weren't right. We know he likes to play with that high line. We know they like to press high up the pitch, and you can do that. But if your way of doing that is to say, as it basically always has been, we're going to trust our two centre-backs and our defence in general to go man for man up against these players we're up against, well, I'm sorry, it wasn't a good plan for the players you have on the pitch. Tomori is suspended for this game, and I'm not sure Tomori's been at his best levels in more than a season now, but either way, he has speed, he has explosiveness, and he's not there for this game because he's suspended. Kalulu's your next quickest defender, next quickest centre-back, he's also not there for this game. So now you're putting Simon Kjaer, who has been a very good defender at times, but is 34 years old. You're putting him into a one-on-one conversation with Lautaro Martinez, who's one of the best forwards in the world. You're putting Malik Chow in a one-on-one conversation with Marcus Thuram. And we found out how that was going right then in the 4th minute, as we tipped over out of that 4 brilliant minutes of Pioliball into Thiaw getting not just run past, but left sort of sprawling on the floor by Thuram. And it's Thuram's initial ball in. It takes him 2 attempts, but it's his ball in that leads to the Mkhitaryan goal eventually. And that pattern didn't change, right? Like Thuram had Thiaw's number for the whole game. He was not just... And this is what's exciting on the other side. What's exciting for Inter is they've traded out Dzeko, who I thought they absolutely would not be able to adequately replace, because Dzeko was such a connector in the team. He was such a winner of the ball. He could make those win the high balls forward and make those flick offs that brought everyone else into play. And I thought that's a really hard role to recreate, because it really relies on his nous, on like his sort of knowledge of the game and instincts for where people are, and the fact that he's been playing for so long at such a high level. And Thuram doesn't do exactly the same thing, but what he has shown he can do through 4 games to me is he can win those high balls in the same way. He can get up and be the aerial force that you want him to be, because he's big and strong. But actually what he has then that Dzeko didn't have, and what Lukaku also didn't have, is this explosive speed. So he was not only able to be physical in that matchup, but also to be faster than Thiaw, and it was a really bad recipe for me from the get-go, and I can't believe Pioli isn't learning this lesson, because really this is the same Milan structurally that we keep seeing in these derbies, and more or less similar things keep happening, because he's putting those centre-backs into one-on-ones, and even before Thuram was there, it wasn't working for him. I don't see it working with this personnel. And then your answer going forward with all of this possession that you have is ultimately no different. Now, maybe this is no longer Pioli's problem. Maybe this is where we start to see limitations of some players who we've been very excited about in the first few games. Maybe it's where we say, okay, it's not about how good those players are, but just about how long it takes to integrate and get up to speed. But I think that after 3 games, what excited me about this Milan team was, okay, they're no longer one-dimensional, right? It's no longer just about get the ball to Leao, because you've got Pulisic on the other side. You've got Loftus-Cheek who can make those bursts and accelerations from midfield. You've got Reinders who can play those balls over the top so effectively. None of that came to bear in this game at all. Pulisic, definitely his most anonymous game for Milan so far, gets replaced by Chukwueze in the second half. Doesn't really change much in terms of impact. Loftus-Cheek didn't see any of that acceleration, didn't see any of that impact on the game, just thoroughly outmaneuvered by that into midfield. Same for Reinders. And in the end, the one goal that Milan do score, it's just exactly the old recipe, right? It's Theo Hernandez on the left feeds the ball to Giroud. Giroud finds a bit of space and plays that ball behind the defence to unlock it for Leao. So the one goal that happens is still nothing new. It's still just, can we beat Inter with this formula that we've been failing to beat them with 5 times in a row? I thought it was all pretty disappointing from Milan, because even that one goal you get relies on Giroud finding that space from Acerbi, which in general he hasn't found in this matchup. Yes, Giroud is a World Cup winner who's been brilliant in his life, but he and he found that moment, but in general he hasn't found those moments consistently for Milan against Inter, and it's not a recipe I'd rely on. So disappointing Pioli personally, blown away by Marcus Thuram, who is sensational and brilliant, and what a signing, frankly. I think he's dovetailing so well with Martinez, because they're both happy as number 9s, but then they both do different things on the margins of that almost, or around that number 9 bits. They can both hold that ground in the middle when they want to. I think on the margins is the wrong way to express that, but I guess accompanying that number 9 role, they both can hold that number 9 role in the middle and be that classic play on the shoulders of defenders when they want to, but when they vary things up, they do it differently. So Martinez comes deep and looks for the ball around midfield and likes to get on the ball and dribble with it and build up a head of steam, which he does so effectively. Where Thuram goes to the wings, of course, because that's where he played a lot at Mönchengladbach when he was in Germany. So you see him drifting left and right. And again, that first goal is just such an example when he just steamrolls Thiaw to get down the sideline and find that room to cut back. He's brilliant. I think what's really standing out to me about this Inter team early in this season is my big concern for them after some of the summer departures is the depth still going to be there? Of course, you've lost so many players just this last summer, even more if you go back to the beginning of Inzaghi's tenure, when you're talking about Hakimi going and Lukaku, even though he came back and left again, or Perisic. But just this last summer, we could talk about Skriniar's going, Brozovic is going, Lukaku is going, Dzeko is going, Gosens is going. Even some of those who aren't starters were important in having depth and going so far. Well, the depth so far this season looks pretty good. Fratesi is not starting because he really would have to go into one of those roles, or most naturally would go into one of those roles, either filled by Mkhitaryan, who was brilliant here again, scored 2 goals, got an assist, or Barella. I think he needs to get games, Fratesi, and I think both of those players can be rotated over time. But right now, that's what you're asking, is can you put him in ahead of those two? But still, comes off the bench, scores, loves every second of it. Carlos Augusto, I thought, was good off the bench as well. Arnautovic showed he can manage situations off the bench. Even Aslani coming off the bench. They've got these players coming off the bench who are doing a job. And it really has, especially when you think there's players who haven't even come into this yet. Alexis Sanchez has come back, but also Benjamin Pavard, we haven't seen at all yet. Their €30 million signing, who presumably will have things to contribute as well. The depth is impressive. The managing of big games is impressive. Everything about Inter this season so far, very, very impressive. To me, the only question about them right now is consistency. Remember, this team lost 12 games in Serie A last season. It wasn't always about the big games, it was about the other games. So we're still in round 4, and that's the question now, is, are you going to have any of those Padze Inter moments? Juventus certainly do, to get onto someone else at last minute. I'm sorry I've talked so much about this game. Certainly do look like a potential contender. They have to be. They're the only other unbeaten team left. I think they're playing some really good football. I think watching this game, my brain just couldn't stop going back to, my God, they were so close to getting rid of Vlahovic in that Lukaku swap, and how crazy would that look now, because he started the season so well. Worth reminding ourselves he started last season well as well, and it didn't continue all the way through. But I want to see this energy from Juventus every game. I want to see them play at this tempo. I want to see them take chances, which they did against Lazio. It wasn't all one way. There was some vulnerability, but lean into that attacking partnership of Vlahovic and Chiesa that seems to be working so well. And the player I wanted to ask you about, Mina, because I realise I'm already running long on time, is Weston McKennie, adapted to play at right wing back. He had a hand in all 3 goals. And is this the rebirth of McKennie after sort of being the the player who wasn't wanted and gets sort of farmed out to Leeds and doesn't have a particularly brilliant time there either and comes back. Have we finally found the home for Weston McKennie doing what used to be the Juan Cuadrado role? Maybe he's actually found his place at right wing back and he's going to be happier there than he was in midfield. I'm really interested by that development because I thought he was, to me, outside of the front two, who obviously, especially Vlahovic, were brilliant. He was the standout in this game. So love to hear what you think about Weston McKennie and how he's developing. Obviously, great result for Roma. Needs more talking about. They win 7-0. Lukaku scores in that game. I think it was a game that really wasn't about Lukaku, but of course it's all about Lukaku once he scores. It's his first start for Roma. They hadn't won a game yet this season. They win 7-0 with him in the lineup. Really, to me, this game was about Paulo Dybala being brilliant again. I thought Cristante was fantastic in this game as well, but has to be encouraging for Jose and his team to have not just Lukaku up and running and integrated, but also Renato Sanchez got a goal in this game on his first start for the team. So that feels like a former PSG midfield with Renato Sanchez and Paredes in the middle alongside Cristante, starting to show some signs of coming together and some classic Jose at the end where he was saying Inter should feel happy for their old boss Jose, who's got Lukaku and he really needed him. I don't know how much to take from this game because Empoli looked terrible, and you've been saying the same thing since earlier this season. Mina, worried about Empoli. 12 goals conceded, 0 scored in their first 4 games. I think they might be a bit of a punching bag this season. Unlike some of the other teams who came in and are surprising us, like Lecce, you mentioned 8 points from 4 games. Frosinone coming from 2-0 down to win 4-2 against Sassuolo. That game was bonkers. They hit the post twice in the last 5 minutes, and then there was a brilliant save at the other end by Turati. A wonderful save, clawing the ball out from underneath the crossbar. Bonkers game of football, very entertaining on Sunday. Not the only one, because Fiorentina 3-2 against Atalanta was really end-to-end and chaotic as well. The team I wanted to ask you about, Mina, Napoli, 2-2 draw away to Genoa. Things have not started brilliantly under Rudi Garcia. They've got 7 points from 4 games. There was this little scene as Kvaratskhelia went off. They did come from 2-0 down, by the way, and Genoa have started quite well this season, but there was this scene, 88th minute, when Kvaratskhelia comes off, the score's 2-2, and you can see Kvaratskhelia is not impressed with it at all. Comes off for Alessio Zerbin. And I just want to ask you, Mina, we talk about Rudi Garcia and I think we will be talking about Rudi Garcia plenty and rightly so. But how are you feeling about Kvaratskhelia right now? Because he was Serie A's MVP last season, but he hasn't scored a goal since the 19th of March. And if you look at Napoli's results last season, even before Rudi Garcia comes in, still under Luciano Spalletti, their last 13 games of last season, which is the 13 after Kvaratskelia's last goal, they only scored 14 times as a team. So this is a team that finished not just top of Serie A, but top scorers, 77 goals in total. Only 14 goals in the last 13 games across all competitions. So when Kvaratskelia's goals dropped off, so did the team's goals. How worried are you about that dynamic? And how much do you think Kvaradona, as he was last season, has just been found out? Is this just a player who his style is so different that it surprised Serie A teams last season? Not just Serie A teams, by the way, surprised teams in the Champions League as well. But once teams adjusted, started doubling up on him, is that it? Is this now a player who's been found out and we're not going to see him be nearly as impactful again? Or is this a case where he can be unlocked again, but something needs to change? I'm really curious to know what you think about that, and how much of it you think is just the Rudi Garcia thing, and how much comes down to last season's MVP.
Podcast Network.
Looking for a fun way to win up to 25 times your money this football season? Test your skills on Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projection for a wide variety of statistics, and place your entry. It's as easy as that. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and an enormous selection of players and stat options are what make Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Ready to test your skills? Join the Prize Picks community of more than 7 million football fans who have already signed up. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit up to $100. Just visit prizepicks.com/get100 and use code GET100. That's code GET100 at prizepicks.com/get100 for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy.